Welcome back to another Alvado video. Now in today's video, we're going to be watching a game played by TSM Kiyoon. Now Kiyoon is not only one of my favorite streamers, but he's also starting with one of my favorite item starts, the tier opener. Before we get into this game, I do want to let you know that I now have a Discord. Yes, it is called the Library. So if you enjoy just hanging out, playing TFT, learning some stuff, and if you're, interested in all things Alvado, then join my Discord. Okay. So he basically gets, an item opener that you pray for, and is exactly why you start tier. You get tier into tier, your direction becomes very clear. You see how he has this gangplank on his board? You can just play blue buff gangplank, and then when you find a Zoe, you put blue buff on Zoe, and then you play Zoe for the rest of the game. So here we can see his first augment of the game. He doesn't really like any of these, and he does something pretty risky, and he ends up re-rolling his first augment. Now, the reason why re-rolling your first augment is so risky is because of hero augments. Of course, you never know what you're going to get when you get a hero augment if you're not able to tailor it, to your likeness. But he really didn't want to play with any of those hero augments. It makes sense. I don't really think they should offer you cybers on stage 2, because the most items that you can spread is 3, and then if you're doing that, then you're not even making an item. So cyber's value is, I mean, you have less units to put cybers on, so it makes sense why it's okay, but at the same time, just doesn't seem like the best thing to happen. Or it doesn't seem like very strong for, the current stage of the game. And then, so yeah, he re-rolled and he saw dummies and he chose it immediately. Now, dummies is actually one of the strongest augments in the game right now, especially in the early game, because it just gives your board so much, extra frontline. And if you have any sort of backline at all, then they make such good use out of these dummies. And he does something pretty soon here where he actually takes even more advantage of the target dummies with one of the admins. He had his frontline kind of clumped up at the beginning, and then he chose to unclump his frontline because what he did is he scouted and he saw that there were a few Ezreal players. There's 2 people that have underground in the lobby right now, and Ezreal benefits from using that AoE ability to hit several units. So he spread his front line to guarantee that Ezreal could only hit at most 2 units. And here we can see the admin. So it's every 5 seconds your team heals 150, every 5 seconds your team gets 15 maximum HP, and then every 5 seconds admins heal 250 HP. So he goes with every 5 seconds your team heals 150 HP, and you can see even with the sped up game, the dummies are actually healing from the admin as well. So he basically, while being level 5, he has 7 units on his board, and he's getting so much more value out of this admin heal because the dummies are healing them as well. His board is really not that strong. He only has, a Kale, and then he has this blue buff slam, but the thing is that blue buff on Kale is really not that powerful. He doesn't really have any, item slam, but he's still able to push for this 5 streak just because of the way that his admin works out, and just because the overall, general strength of the units that he's playing. He's playing quality units. None of them are upgraded, but they're all they all work pretty well together. Now, why is blue buff Kale so bad? Blue buff Kale has such a low mana pool. The thing is that what happens is when she casts, what she does is she empowers her auto attacks. And so since she empowers her auto attacks, she isn't able to actually, cast again until she's done using the full use of her ability. So he does something pretty crazy here. Since he really needs to make sure that he doesn't want Duelist, and he doesn't want, forget the other trade, but he had another trade in that he really didn't want to get for the hero augment. So he levels to 6 and he actually rolls because he got a gold orb that dropped him gold, and he also, since he 5-streaked, his econ was like very good. So he literally leveled to 6 on 3-1 and rolled. You really do not see people make that play very often, normally because, you know, you're going to really like destroy your economy. The thing is that since he had so much gold, he was actually able to do that and not grief his economy while trying to play around the potential hero augment on 3-2 here. So instead of a hero augment, he gets shown Tome, or he gets shown, you know, 3 traits. He doesn't really like what he saw, so he just goes for Tome. He doesn't have his reroll, so he's not able to, you know, reroll the second augment. And he doesn't want to have to think about it, so he just pops the Tome. Now, he actually had really good odds because he has exactly 10 traits, and he has a threat trait in. So you can't even get threat in the Tome, and he was guaranteed 3 traits from 3 traits that he has amongst all of the traits that he had in. Not the ones that are active, but the ones that are active and the ones that are inactive. And he didn't really get any of the ones that he wanted. He was looking for either admin or prankster, and he got mascot, anima squad, and hacker as the ones that were tailored. And he just goes ahead and chooses hacker. He's probably going to be playing around Zoe, like I said earlier in the video. And, you know, he can't really make much use out of Anima Squad, and he can't really make much use out of Mascot. 2 Mascot, you know, isn't really worth a gold hero augment. Whereas Hacker down the line, if he's able to get in 3 or even 4 Hacker in, he can really make some pretty hefty use out of that. We had Shane since the beginning of the game, and he goes for Belt off of the carousel there to complete the Sunfire Cape, and right in time, he's able to swap out this A-Soul with a Belveth. He was playing A-Soul because he really wanted the anti-heal. Now that he has anti-heal, he can just itemize this Belveth and just make use of that unit because he just thinks that it's stronger. It's pretty interesting. I think he plays this game like super weird. Like, I think a lot of his decisions are decisions that I wouldn't make, or, you know, games of players that I've analyzed wouldn't really make. But at the end of the day, that's a good thing, because if he's finding success while being, you know, while playing in a playstyle that is not seen as, you know, super conventional, then, you know, that's good, because then there's more to learn from that. TFT is one of these games where there really is so many different ways that you can go about playing a game, and, you know, the more ways that you can you know, utilize different play styles, the better, right? I think if you really are trying to learn this game, then it really benefits you to watch other streamers play, and you might get a play style from watching them, but at least, you know, you're adopting a play style in the first place. Okay, so he leveled to 7 on 4-1 there, and he rolled pretty deep. He just wanted to start, you know, finding the units that he wants on his final board. His main idea was that he was going to reroll Annie, Zoe, and, you know, anything else that he could find along the way. Maybe a LeBlanc 3, maybe a Jinx 3, maybe a Sona 3, and then he could play around some Spellslinger Heart build. But, you know, he still doesn't have a Zoe 2 yet. And it doesn't look like he's getting enough units where he can realistically reroll anything. Now, his board is pretty hard to fit. He doesn't really know exactly how he wants to piece his board together yet. But at the very least, we can see that his items are pretty scattered. He only has 1 item on Zoe, he has TG on this LeBlanc, he has 1 item on this Annie, and then with the rest of the items that he has on his bench, we can expect that one of them is going to be placed on Soraka. The chain is probably going to end up on Annie. and then the sword is going to end up either on Zoe or LeBlanc. I mean, not LeBlanc, sorry, or Soraka. He's actually able, he rolls like super deep there. He found Alistar 2 and Zoe 2, but he actually wanted more. So he kept rolling. I think he really just wanted to hit this LeBlanc 2, but he ended up hitting Soraka 2. And, you know, he's not upset at that. He'll take a Soraka 2 on level 7 every day. Of course, the admin is still going off where his whole team is healing 150 HP. That's really strong in the early game, but it's definitely, you know, putting some work in the late game as well. Now that he hits this LeBlanc 2, he's down to, you know, itemize it as well. And he doesn't really want to make Shojin because of Soraka's, you know, low mana pool. It benefits so much more from blue buff. Now he does something pretty interesting here. We can see exactly how he's utilizing these gadgetine items. So since he has 3 hacker Soraka and he has this the BT gadgetine item, he has 60% Omnivamp on his Soraka, so he's down to just send it in the backline because of how much healing it has. And you can see that it basically puts in as much work as you could ask for because it kills everything except for this Ezreal, and then the rest of their team, you know, is able to clean up. And if you could see that Soraka did so much damage there because every single time she's taking damage, she's able to cast and just heal so much off of that. And, you know, his whole team benefits from this Soraka just casting as much as possible because, of course, he has the 2 heart trait in. 2 heart trait means every single time a heart unit casts, your whole team gains 4 AP. So if the Soraka casts, you know, 10 times, that means that's 40 AP for your entire team. And you can see he's going into stage 5 being the healthiest in the lobby. But his board really isn't, you know, anything special. He only has, you know, essentially 1 item Zoe, 1 item Soraka. He does have the Hacker Crest, which obviously gives him 40% Omnivamp, so it's even better than, you know, something like a Gunblade. But you can see that after he chooses to take this Rod, he wants to make Spark because he really needs the MR Shred. Especially if he's going to be playing around in Annie 3, which he's 2 away from hitting. So he really wanted that Spark, and then all he was left with was to make this Edge of Night. You can see that his items still continue to be very scattered, and this is a spot where playing Gadgettine actually is really effective going on into the late game. I think when a lot of people play Gadgettine, they play it in the early game and it's like really powerful. But then it heavily falls off because at the end of the day, you normally want a 3-item carry and a 3-item frontline unit. If you could go into a game and get that every single time, then, you know, that's like your plan. Most of the time when you look at your items and you're trying to figure out what to build, you're trying to figure out what to build on your carry and on your main tank. But in this situation, since he only has, you know, he's dual carry Soraka, Zoe, and he only has 2 items on each of them, and then he only has 2 items on this Annie, he can make use out of every single Gadgettine item possible. So this Lulu is actually giving his team, you know, a lot of benefit. Now he finds this Fiddlesticks here after leveling to 8. Like I said, he didn't find enough Zoes, he didn't find enough, you know, other 3 stars or other 3 costs in order for him to consider staying on level 7 and re-rolling those units. So he just pushes levels there, and it's super interesting because he's looking for Annie 3, right? I think a lot of people also would stay on level 7 until they at least hit Annie, and then they would level to 8. The thing is, since he only needed 2 more Annies, and he's probably never going to level 9, he was okay with just having more valuable rolls on level 8, and he's just saying like he's gonna roll enough gold where he's going to find Annie anyways. And he has this Fiddlesticks pair, but he ends up taking out the Fiddlesticks for this Echo because 3 Prankster is an extremely strong trait, and he was also able to get this Heart Spat off of Carousel. So now that he gets this Heart Spat off of Carousel, we all know how strong Heart Spat can be on Zoe because she casts so much. You know, if Soraka's casting 10 times in a fight, then that means Zoe's probably casting like 20 times. Especially with Edge of Night, especially with Prankster. This Zoe, you basically have to kill like 3 times because she's gonna get the aggro drop from Hacker, and then she's gonna dash away from Prankster, and then she has 3 Hacker in, so she's healing so much that you have to you know, it's gonna be just really hard to take out this Zoe. It's probably gonna be like the last unit you end up killing. Now he's actually able to get a Fiddlesticks 2 here. And then he rearranges his board so that he has 4 hearts in. And now his comp is really coming together. Even though he literally has 0 damage items. He doesn't have a single Rabadons. He doesn't have a single Jeweled Gauntlet. He doesn't have a single, like, anything. He just has mana items and healing items. And, you know, sustain items. The thing is, in a vertical heart comp, where, you know, you have so many units that deals damage. Soraka's dealing damage, Zoe's dealing damage, LeBlanc is dealing damage, Annie's dealing damage, and of course this Fiddlesticks 2 is going to be dealing a lot of damage. If you ramp everyone's AP, then you really don't even need a damage item, because at the end of the day, it's like your whole team is basically getting, you know, a double, triple Rabadons. He now has 4 heart in, so every single cast, your team gets 7 AP now. So if Soraka's casting 10 times, Zoe's casting 20 times, that's 70 AP from Soraka, 140 AP from Zoe. By the time fights get to the end, you know, your whole team is having 210 mana, and then if you get into, you know, overtime, then that gets doubled. So, you know, Fiddlesticks uses those stats extremely well, and, you know, some of these heart comps are some of my favorite comps to play around because we can, yeah, like his comp pieced very well together. He has the phony front line, just making it so that he's going to guarantee getting into the late game. I'm gonna go ahead and slow down because this is the last fight in the game, and I kind of just want to show you guys exactly, you know, the strength of how a comp like this might work. He sends this Alistar into the back line. He uses it to stun this carry, to stun Samira. You can see that his opponent has 3 item Samira 2, 3 item Aphelios 2. I mean, this is easily one of the strongest, you know, boards that you can expect to go against. But with how much AP this Fiddlesticks is getting, and he actually rolled double healing item on TG, you know, it's just extremely difficult for even an Aphelios 2 and a Samira 2 to deal with all of the threats that Kiyoon was able to put on his board. Because even if you're killing, you know, the Fiddlesticks, you still have to kill the Soraka. Even if you kill the Soraka, you still have to kill the Zoe. Even if you kill the Zoe, you still have to kill the LeBlanc. And at the end of the day, or actually he replaced it with Sona. And at the end of the day, you know, when your fight gets to the very end, the very last unit is going to have so much AP that even if they get to the very end, you know, they get one more cast off and then they like wipe the whole board with their cast. Art comps are easily one of my favorite comps to play because of how creative you can make your board and how differently it allows you to play the game of TFT. Hopefully you learned something from this video. Like the video if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one.